Sensational Saturday. Welcome to a new edition of the D Word. My goodness, I'm always very excited to be able to create this broadcast. My co-host Carolina Denhard, she's a family law, divorce law, and international law attorney, would not be able to join us because she is also being interviewed in a big Polish broadcasting station. And so we'd like to be able to reach as many people as we can in our efforts to empower so many people out there. But anyway, I am very glad to be here today because I am joined by a wonderful, amazing, brilliant, like trailblazing genius that I'm sure you would all be very, very excited to know about. Well, first of all, let me brag about her, right? Okay, so my guest is a real estate guru, but she's a lot more than that. I actually recently met her during our photo shoot for the Divorce Dynasty when we had actually the backdrop of a jet and all of the vetted professionals of Divorce Dynasty came together, and I met this woman who actually just basically, wow, her presence is electrifying, and you can very well see she also has a huge heart. But first of all, let me tell you a little bit about this guest of mine. Okay, Judy Sahagian is a real estate guru. She's a native New Yorker, and ever since she was 7, believe it or not, she was already being groomed to becoming an entrepreneur. At 15, she dropped out of school, saying school is just a waste of time. But let me tell you something, so many things happened after that. Well, she went to Puerto Rico dealing with rich men, opened her eyes to actually why they are wealthy in real estate. And that also opened her eyes to seeing real estate as a pathway to building wealth. Since 2003, she has dealt with huge real estate transactions in various parts of New York and even became an owner of 5 restaurants. Can you believe that? Then she took construction management course in New York University. Life transitioned her to Australia and back to New York, and her lessons inspired her to create Judy Networks, which she's going to talk about later, leading her to her fame as celebrity real estate guru, and she can be seen on major networks. Well, Judy Sahagian, I hope I'm saying it correctly, is high energy, ambitious, goal driven sales guru with expertise in team building, project management, closing deals in high level real estate transactions. She has produced hundreds of events, videos, and conferences. First of all, I am telling you, she's multi passionate and she is multi talented in ways you could never ever even begin to describe. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to present to you Judy Sahagian. Woohoo! Hi,
Wow,
Judy.
thank you. I mean, what an introduction. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you, and it's an honor to share my experiences in life with your audience.
Oh my goodness, you are such a beautiful person inside and out. I was reading your bio and your media kit, and I said, my goodness, she is a very inspiring woman. People need to get in touch with because it's not just all about the real estate market, right? There is so many facets of you that really sparkle. And Judy, my first question to you is: you are such an expert in many different areas. If you were to be known with one thing, what would it be? What would you like it to be?
I am known for, first of all, number one, in real estate, networking, events, media, all of it. It's about relationships, and being able to relate to people and having enough empathy and experience in my life. I've used that to relate to people and then create experiences. So throughout life, the biggest thing, at the end of life, right? Whether you're rich, whatever it is, you have your memories. And by creating those experiences also creates memories. And that's what I would be most known for.
That is very, very beautiful. We were just talking about, I was saying, your image is very confident. Your presence is really very strong. And I even use the word very badass, right? Because in commercial real estate, it's not easy to be in competition with men. How did you end up standing out and being very successful in an area where men dominated?
Well, I have to tell you, I can't take all of the credit for that. I was lucky enough to mentor and be the protege of Faith Hope Consolo. She's passed away a couple of years on the eve of Christmas Eve, but she was known as the queen of retail, and she broke the glass ceiling for women in commercial real estate. And she was tougher than tough, and she taught me not only how to not survive but thrive in commercial real estate, but she taught me how to do it as a woman and keeping my femininity. I think a big mistake that a lot of women do nowadays is, as they go up the corporate ladder, they feel like they have to be a man, and that is, in my opinion, not the way to go. We need to be proud of our femininity and use that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm very strong and I'm tough when I need to be, but that was what I learned from Faith. She taught me discipline, and she taught me how to be in my power as a woman. As a matter of fact, she was also very strong and very known for not holding her tongue. So I remember I came to the office one day and I was dressed like in black suit and everything, and she said, "Turn around and go home and change and never walk into this office looking like that again." And it was really a lot of lessons. So I'm very lucky to have learned the business, but from a woman who was a legend, not just she was a legend of her day. And I get to now be a legend in my day with the lessons that I've learned through her and various other mentors that I've been lucky to be in front of.
Wow. What a beautiful, inspiring story. It's just a shame I never got to meet this incredible, wonderful legend who has basically empowered so many women to
Mhm,
just step into our, just what you said, femininity. Now,
mhm,
you also have said, that, part of what you are is being resilient in this day and age. Like right now, the real estate market is also going through so many different changes because of COVID. Talk to us
mhm.
about what the space is looking like.
Well, see, that's the interesting part, because where there's chaos, there's also opportunity. And, yes, unfortunately, the market in Manhattan right now and urban cities are suffering. However, when you look at the suburbs, they're thriving. I think one of the most important things, whether you're in residential real estate or commercial real estate, is to be able to learn how to pivot. And where you may have been in the business for a very long time in the luxury market per se, maybe for a couple of years you might not be in that same market. But one of the things that when I'm mentoring people, it's learn to see the writing on the wall. Nowadays, we don't rely on our common sense. I've been in the business, 25 plus years, and I've been through a few crashes, and I've been lucky enough to know when to change my strategies and how I'm going about things to match the market and see the writing on the wall where I can prepare my clients and colleagues. However, a lot of people nowadays, they'll just turn on the news and watch the news, and whatever they're saying to them at that moment is what it is. And that's not what people hire us for. They hire us to foresee the future and protect them and guide them into making the best decisions.
Yeah, I love that you are being very proactive. If ever since you were a child, I see how you are able to create opportunities with what is available to you, and I
Mhm,
see that is like your amazing gift. Now, actually, among the other many other things that I do, I am right now actually very focused on financial resilience through life insurance with living benefits. But one aspect of my life is also a realtor. And I noticed that, because of the mass exodus of homeowners and the property owners from New York City, they're also coming to Ocean County here in New Jersey because they're looking for a place where they can actually now work from home in a more affordable and more relaxed way. And I that's why I love what you just said about see the writing on the wall. Where is it thriving? Where is the opportunity? Now, what would you say to those realtors out there who remain stubborn in their ways of doing the business because they know I've been doing this for 30 something years. I know what it's like. It's going to bounce back. What would you say to those people who are quite stubborn in being able to be more flexible?
I would recommend them to read the book Who Moved My Cheese. I mean, if you don't know, if you don't pivot, you become a dinosaur. It's as simple as that. We are in different times now, and for many people are like, "Oh, when is this going to change?" It is never going to go back to the New York it was after 9/11 hit. It was a new reality. This has created a new reality. And with this second wave, it's still going to create a new reality. And when we pass it, it's still going to be a new reality. So if you don't know how to work with what's going on, you're going to be out of business. And that goes for everything, not just real estate. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel because I grew up in the Bronx. I am as New York as you can get. And I believe that we there in a couple of years, the Manhattan will come back, and it's going to open it up for new entrepreneurs, new business owners, new people that are going to come in and start their families and start their businesses, and the market is going to reset. And it may take a decade for this to rebound, which that's no surprise. We haven't even seen the bottom of this yet. We're still in the beginning processes of what's going to happen. And nobody, I don't care if you're the best economist or anything in the world, no one is going to be able to foresee where this is going to go. I mean, when this all started, I already had expected doom and gloom by this time. If you were to compare it to, the Great Recession or the Great Depression. But I never would have thought that, the suburbs would be booming and other markets, because we're not dealing with just the economics right now. We're dealing with the health crisis. And so there's a lot of unknowns. So when you're dealing with a lot of unknowns, the most important thing is to have, okay, in Manhattan, I'm not going to sell the same amount. Maybe I'll sell some stuff. A lot of people who did not get to do it in the summertime are going to sit and hold. And a lot of developments or a lot of places, maybe they won't be able to sell those places. They're going to have to rent it. And it's going to be tight and hard for the next couple of years. But it doesn't mean that you're going to be out of business. You just got to learn how to pivot. And if, diversify your portfolio. My Zoom thing.
This is what happens on live broadcast, right? Anything.
I know.
And I that's what I love also about Zoom or Facebook live or anything like that, because we know that we are not in our fancy studios and things happen, and that also gives people a glimpse of who we are as people, right? But
Oh
like
my God. Just to interrupt. So the last Zoom that I did with my developers in Mexico and everything, as I'm sitting and talking, my chair broke. I'm live on Zoom, live everything. My chair broke. Everybody was like, it was the funniest blooper, and it was just when Zoom was starting. And I made like a blooper clip. And while everybody was depressed, I sent it to them. And
oh,
and they're just like, and the biggest thrill for me was just having them watch. I didn't tell them that I was gonna fall and everything. And it was just hearing the reactions. I don't take myself so serious. You can't take yourself
I
serious in an
love that.
environment like this.
Yeah, I love that. I can just imagine. You have to send that clip to me
I am
because,
going to send it to you.
because I
And
was
you could play it if you like. I give you
oh
full
my goodness.
permission to play it.
That is so much fun because I'm just imagining, especially with us, right? Like we're dressed, we're dressed to the T from waist up, and of course, like we're either wearing just shorts, pajamas, slippers, whatever it may be.
I got sweatpants on.
Oh, that's what. But as I've said, like we should put that on because everybody could use a little laughter. Like
Absolutely.
By the way, going back to what we were talking about, and you were talking about the medical part of the challenges that we're going through, and that's one of the reasons why, with the divorce dynasty, we are a group of very, very passionate and very talented and brilliant vetted professionals in many different areas, whether it can be in law, in psychiatry, in health, in actually in law alone, we have so many different expert lawyers that we have.
Also psychiatry. I opened a psychiatrist's office, and I actually have some space for psychologists in the city if anybody's interested. Um, but it is right now, mental health is a very important issue because
Yeah,
people are dealing with pandemic fatigue,
yeah,
exhaustion, and now we have the holidays, and
yes,
people, there's a lot of uncertainty. So mental health, beyond everything, mental health is the most important thing to pay attention. I mean,
yeah,
both of my parents, are mentally disabled, and I grew up in that type of environment. So I'm very sensitive to mental issues. And it may not have to be as, dramatic as schizophrenia, but we're all on a spectrum. People
yeah,
don't realize is that it's the norm, but there's no such thing as normal, right? It's just what a majority or a collective is doing. So
yeah,
when you have a collective right now, which is the world, who is under extreme amount of stress and uncertainty, we have to pay attention to those things above all, because without mental clarity, mental health, and all of that, how are you supposed to keep your families going? How are you supposed to keep your business going? How are you supposed to wake up every day? So it's important for us to instill that in everything that we do first, before everything else, because without your health, your mental, anything, what do you have? How can you keep anything going?
yeah. And I love what you're sharing because I'm obviously all about resilience. Because the whole idea right now is that, in the divorce dynasty, that's why we have so many different experts because different people go through many life transitions right now. They're going through divorce. People are dying, people are going through a lot of grief and all that, and we're able to provide that support. And one of the things that you also mentioned about like medical issues right now as it affect the real estate market, one of the things that in the divorce dynasty, I'm actually the go-to expert for life insurance. But what makes me different is because I offer living benefits, the kind of life insurance you don't have to die to use, so that people in real estate right now who may be holding on to their properties because they can't sell them, what if they get sick? And now who's going to pay for the mortgage, for the bills and the utilities? And how do you protect your family from having that deep financial disaster happening? And I love the fact that we can all go into partnership to be able to support the needs of the people who are going through the different challenges as we go through not only this pandemic but life in general. And I love the fact that even as a real estate guru, you're very intuitive and compassionate in being able to support the needs of your clients as well and your friends and family, of course.
I think right now, a lot of people, the old way of things, right? It's like, oh, you want to do a sale, you want to close a deal, but you really have to lead with empathy right now, because a lot of people, they want to demonize the landlords, especially in commercial real estate. Right now, it's not about, oh, I want to squeeze the best deal. It's how we all become partners and come in together to do transactions, to help our landlords, to help our tenants, to create that medium, and even within ourselves as the real estate brokers and everything like that, we have to really have empathy for both sides and saying, how do we work together? How do we get through this together? Because if you try to squeeze the landlord too much, they have to also pay their bills, their mortgages and everything. If they lose their buildings, you lose your business. So it's not one or the other, it's hand in hand. And how do we find a perfect median to weather this?
Yes, I love that. I love that. Judy, you are also the founder of Judy Network. I would love for you to talk about that. What exactly is Judy Network all about?
Well, back in 2007, when there was the Great Recession, at that time, I was doing, that's when I had my restaurants, and I was, doing mortgages, I was doing real estate, everything, because I just love it, right? And I went from having a beautiful penthouse to sleeping in my car, and no deals were closing, you know, businesses shut down, and I lost everything. And I had to reinvent myself. At the time, I was dating someone who had, sold his businesses, and he started a networking event. And I just, between restaurants and growing up running nightclubs, bartending, and all the things I used to do, I just realized that I had a natural knack of bringing people together. And so when we started dating, and I couldn't do anything else because there was nothing to do in real estate, there was a whole time that no deals were closing. So I had to reinvent myself. So I helped him with his business, which was networking events, and he was doing these networking mixers, and it was very interesting at that time because people were coming out in drones, and through the years, so we went from the networking events were like evening mixers to conferences. And I mean, we did good. We didn't even realize. I'll never forget the first conference we did. We had Schiller there, and we were just praying to God we could get 300 people. We had 700 people there at Chelsea Piers, and it's like the doors flooded in, and I was just like, but it was such an experience. And my ex at that time, he really wanted to stay with the 1%, and how guys do, right? And me, I was more in a different thing. But at that time, we went through a breakup, and I went to Australia, where most of my family is. My grandmother had just passed away, who raised me, so that was my rock. And I guess between the breakup, losing everything, and I just had to go and reset in Australia. So I went to Australia for 3 months, and reset, did an amazing graffiti mural, because my uncle is like one of the most famous graffiti artists, Tracy 168 Wild Style. So doing that, um, at the time, I just saw all these people come together to see the wall, and it went into the universities and the newspapers. And at that moment, I realized that the power was in me. And what I had been doing all my life was giving the power to other people, because I had the imposter syndrome, because I didn't graduate, high school, and I got a GED, and I didn't go to college, and my ex-boyfriend was Ivy League. So it was like, there was a lot of imposter syndrome. And until I took that step to separate myself from everything and go across the planet, literally, and reset, that's when I found that I had the magic and the power was in me. So it gave me the strength to come back and start Judy Networks. And when I started Judy Networks, I started out doing it as networking events the way he was before, where then I took it into TV shows, and I started my first TV show concept, which was What's Cooking in Real Estate, which I didn't expect for it to take off the way it did. And that is how I met Faith Hope Consolo, which it's a longer story, and it's an amazing story, actually. And she was big in the media. And when I came back from Australia, I called my good friend Gail Lewis. She passed away uh, a year after, within a year after. And I called her up and I said, I'm back from Australia. I don't have any money and I want to start my business, Judy Networks. And it was my first website. And she walked me through that and made me my first website. She said, let's do it. And into that, she says to me, you remind me of this woman, Faith Hope Consolo. I see you as her in the future. You need to find her because I think she'd be a good mentor for you. And I said, okay, I look her up. She's on CNN, Fox, this, that. And I'm like, this woman's never even going to look at me, much less be my mentor. Sure enough, a couple of months later, I'm at the Rebney Gala and I'm there with one of my Toastmaster brothers. And he was running the funds for the New York Times at that time. So he was the big sponsor of the Rebney Gala. And he's like, oh, yeah, there goes Faith. And it's like instant in my head. I said, I have to meet her. So I have an entourage. She has an entourage. And I'm like, he's like, Faith, meet Judy Networks. And that's when I just started Judy Networks. So no one really knew who Judy Networks was at that time, except for my events and things. And she's like, yes. And I'm like, I didn't know what to say. My mind blacked out. And I said, you're going to be the first celebrity on my show. And she just looked at me and I didn't even know that she was like all about media really to that point. And she goes, yes. I said, what's cooking in real estate? And she goes, and this little smile goes up and she goes, here's my card. Nobody gets this. And I'm like, so now my question to you is, do you think I called her the next day?
She called you.
No, neither.
No,
So no,
really?
no. So I didn't call her because at the time I really didn't have a TV show. It was just a conversation I had 2 days before. And I was like, okay, now I got to come up with a TV show. So a couple of months later, a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Lori Sokol, I don't know if you know her, Sokol Media,
No,
Lori Sokol.
not yet,
She
but I'd love to meet her.
Yeah, she's amazing. So she always did like the top women in real estate, the top women in finance, and she would always do it at the 101 Club. So a couple of months later, I'm there at the 101 Club, and the event was like top women in finance, and it was like 300 of like the most powerful women in New York City in this place. I have a table of 10 in the back. Faith has a table of 20 in the front. And then Lori Sokol says, okay, Judy, you go up to the front and start speaking in the podium. I just started, Toastmasters. I wasn't a confident speaker at that time in front of people. So now I walk up to the podium and I'm looking at all these women and I blank out again because in my mind, I'm like, they don't care who I am. They're like, Judy Networks. Like, and I said, and Faith Hope Consolo so kindly agreed to be the first celebrity on my show, What's Cooking
Wow.
in Real Estate. And she's looking at me. She doesn't even remember me from the Rebney Gala. So now she comes up to the podium and it's like 300 people, TV there. And she's like, yes, I agreed. And so after that, now I had to develop a TV show. And I ended up going to the Sub Zero showroom. They gave it to me. I ended up getting some sponsors just like that. I had a TV show. Faith shows up and she's like, after that moment, I emailed, I said, so kind of you to agree to be on my show, What's Cooking in Real Estate. She goes, can you come to my office to see what I am really agreeing to? And I show up to her office, which was 575 Madison Avenue. She was the retail chair of Douglas Elliman. Now I'm walking in Madison Avenue. Imagine a girl from the Bronx walking into Madison Avenue. She walked, and I walk in, and I'm in the conference center, which after that turned out to be my office for the next 6 years. And I'm saying in my mind, she's probably recording me or whatever. So I sit in a certain way. And oddly enough, she walks in, we're wearing the same exact colors. Like, no lie. And from there, we fell in love. plain and simple. She was like an only child, you know, me too. I'm an only child and grew up hard, and I grew up hard. So we developed this mother-daughter bond. And then after that, she said, you know, after the way you got me on your show and the way you pulled things off, you have to join my team. And it had always been my dream to do commercial real estate. And so that's when I joined her team at Douglas Elliman. And I never forget the first day I show up to the office, she says to me, honeymoon is over. Go out on Madison Avenue and don't come back without a deal. So she always threw me in the fire and threw me to the wolves. And I remember, if you want to hear this story, because it's pretty good if you want to hear it, it's a good
Okay, let's
story.
make it quick because we'd love to be able to for you to tell us, how to learn more about you. But yeah, if you could briefly tell the story about that juicy one.
Yeah, this is a juicy one. So it's my first day at the office, Madison Avenue. Okay. Luxury retail, Madison Avenue. So I remember I'm standing outside of Mulberry on 57th and Madison. It was the first store that I was going into. It was next to Coach. It's not there anymore. And I was never so afraid to walk into a store in my life. So when I finally decide to walk into the store, this guy walks in right next to me and he had salesman written all over him. So I said, something said, stay back. So I put my phone on record, right? And I stay as a customer. I record the whole spiel. Sure enough, he was a retail broker. So I record the whole spiel and everything like that. When he walks out, I go across the street to Obika and I listen to the recording 5 times. I write down all of the questions that he asked and the answers. Now, I did that to every store because this is what you call canvassing. Every store from 56th Street to 86th Street and back down, took all the business cards, wrote down all the answers to all the questions, walked back into the office at the end of the day, slammed the book on her desk with all the business cards, and I said, good night. And she was just like, and that,
I love it. I love it. So okay, that is a huge lesson on audacity and massive inspired action because you were given a challenge. I first of all, I love how basically things just happen organically for you. And you every single time you were put on fire, you're able to step up and perform. And like not everybody could do that, but because there's that fire in you and that desire to be somebody and to create a global brand like what you're doing right now, not only in real estate but in many other aspects. What a very inspiring story. As a matter of fact, I am looking to book you also on my other podcast called Faces of Resilience, because you certainly have a lot of stories of resilience that are very, very inspiring for people out there. So don't put limit to your dreams, to your goals in life, and to the legacy that you are creating.
the
If you
only limit, the limits are the ones that we put on ourselves.
Yes, so if you have to give one last tip, first of all, belated happy birthday. We were
Thank
supposed
you.
to have you, we were supposed to have you last week, so woohoo! Belated happy birthday. Okay,
Thank you.
now that you are a year wiser, what words of wisdom will you share to help people anchor to the next year?
To help people.
Anchor themselves to next year, to prepare themselves better as we face all of these catastrophic challenges that we are going through right now.
I would say get out of your heads.
Okay.
The most important thing when you're dealing with uncertainty and the unknown is to be objective. And that means stepping out of your emotions, stepping outside of yourself, and looking at it from every angle before you make a decision, whether it be financial, personal, whatever it is. Learn to be objective and see things from things and take a step. It's okay to take a step back sometimes, because when you go into something so emotionally driven, you're going to miss a lot of points. So if you could be, you take yourself out of the equation. And sometimes I give people advice like, go talk to yourself in the mirror. It's the most powerful thing you can do, because it's like you're giving yourself advice, right? So if you come to me as a friend and say, Judy, I need this, this, that, and the other, self-talk is the most important thing. If you have negative self-talk, who do you have to turn to?
Beautiful. I love that because oftentimes we need to get out of our own way because we basically were the barrier to our success, we're the barrier to progress, we're the barrier to resilience. When you look at things, just like what you said, from different angles and see it objectively, so you're reasoning out. But of course, we're always going to be a little bit emotional. But when you are able to get out of your own head as to why you shouldn't do it, at least you're able to be open up to new options, to solutions, right? And
It's interesting because when I was a kid, I was very emotional, right? And my grandmother used to always say to me, Judy, you have to learn how to be in the middle. Because if you're too this way or too that way, you don't have any wiggle room. So it's the same thing with everything. You have to learn to stay balanced and stay in the middle. And if you can't change what's happening at that very moment, that very second, then focus on what you can. And eventually the answers are going to come to you.
you have a very, very wise grandmother, and obviously, I think genetically it was passed on to you.
Well, her birthday was 2 days before mine. So she was December 3rd and I was December 5th. So we always celebrated our birthdays together.
Oh my goodness! What a beautiful, beautiful lesson. Um, listening to what you've shared today in this show, you have shared from your own personal stories the different things that you do to become to thrive, actually not only to survive but to thrive in changing situations. I love the way that you are, um, like that you're heart centered. I love the way that you are very compassionate. I love the way that you are audacious, and most of all very gracious for everything that you are going through. So
Thank you.
Judy, it was such an absolute pleasure to have you on the D word. I'm sure Carolina Denhard, our family law, divorce law, and international law expert is is watching us also and saying, "Wow, what a great team we've got at the Divorce Dynasty." So
Mm.
continue to shine your light, and I will be speaking with you. As we move towards progress, as we move to a new normal, exciting and better than ever. Thank you so very much, Judy, and have a fabulous, fabulous weekend, and also enjoy the rest of the year. And woohoo! Let 2021 begin with like a big bang with great possibilities. And if hook her up on Beauty Network. First of all, if people want to follow you on social media or want to speak with you and collaborate with you, how do they reach you?
Well, they could Google my name, Judy Networks, or Judy Sahagian on Instagram. I'm known as Judy Networks. Facebook. So it's either Judy Sahagian or Judy Networks. They could DM me. They could email me at judynetworks@gmail.com if they need anything, or just go into any of my social media profiles and DM me from there. I handle my own social media, so it won't be a bot or another person at the other end. Also,
Yeah,
I would like to thank you for having me on your show. And if I don't speak to you beforehand, I would like to wish you and your viewers a wonderful holiday season and a prosperous new year.
thank you so very much. Well, beautiful. Stay radiant. I love the light that you shine. Well, on that note, we thank you for joining us this morning on the D Word, and we'll see you again next Saturday, 11 a.m. All right. On behalf of Carolina Denmark, this is Shirley Almonte from the D Word. Have a fantastic and grateful day. Take care. Bye bye.